Everybody, Charles from GMAT Ninja Tutoring here. Today we're going to talk about the online version of the GMAT, so the type you take at home, not in a test center. And we're going to talk about all of the things that can go wrong with it, technical things that might get your score canceled, technical things that might get your test interrupted and then you just don't get the testing time you deserve, or crazy things like maybe there's somebody hiding under your bed when you take the test. You don't want that. So we'll get into all those things, how to avoid them, how to make sure you have a totally smooth experience, what to do if your experience isn't totally smooth. We'll get into all of that good stuff. Now, as you watch this, I want you to keep this in mind. So usually if I'm just yapping into the camera by myself, you're gonna hear a lot of my opinions, my thoughts on how best to prepare for the exam. That is not what this video is. This video is produced in very, very close partnership with GMAC, the company that produces the GMAT. So I've had many conversations with the people who run their test security department, and those are the ones that make sure that everybody has a fair, seamless testing experience. So we got into all sorts of nuances of things that happen during the online GMAT, things that can get your score canceled, what to do, what not to do. So everything you're gonna see in this video is my very, very best attempt to quote them. For a lot of reasons, we decided not to put them on camera, but I'm doing my very, very best to channel their best advice to help make your testing experience better. All right, so let's start by talking about some of the key differences between taking the GMAT online versus taking it in a test center. So when you think about what a standardized exam is, to make it fair for everybody, we want to make sure that everybody has really the very same environment and that nobody can cheat on it, because the last thing you want to have happen is that somebody else competing with you for that slot in your MBA program has cheated. They have an artificially inflated score. You played by the rules. Your score is not artificially inflated. Not fair. Everybody wants to make sure that cheaters get caught. Fantastic. So doing that means that you want to make sure that that testing environment is totally standardized. There can't be exchanges of information, no technology that would help you or anybody else cheat. Can't be other people talking to you in that testing room. Now, obviously in the test center, it's the test center's job and GMAC's job to standardize that environment, make sure that all of those things are not possible. As soon as you take the exam online, now you're responsible for that environment. Now, it's not to say that that's an impossible thing. Tons and tons of people test successfully online and it's not a problem. It just means that there's more that you have to keep an eye on. So for example, you have to make sure that nobody can come into the room while you're taking your test. You have to make sure that your cell phone is out of reach and there's no other technology there that could facilitate some exchange of information. You have to make sure that your network connectivity is really strong, because if there's an outage of some sort during your test, well, unfortunately, GMAC doesn't know what happened. Maybe you were doing something nefarious during that outage, who knows? So you're responsible for everything running properly on your computer and with your network. So here's the way to think about it. If you're really uncomfortable taking care of all of those things, then maybe you're better off taking the exam in a test center. But if you prefer to test at home, you'd be happier testing online. It really isn't a problem. Just make sure that you've read everything in the handbook. We'll put a link to that in the video description. And just make sure that you keep track of everything. Make sure that you really put the energy in to make sure that everything in your environment completely follows those rules. All right, so what are some of the common reasons why you might get your score canceled if you take the GMAT online? So all sorts of things here. First of all, you might have a technical issue. There's a network outage, or there's some software running in the background of your computer that you forgot about. That could get your score canceled. You might have your cell phone within reach, or a watch or something like that, and you forget about it, reach for it automatically during the test. Maybe you have the wrong size whiteboard. Really big one is that once you're taking the test at home, maybe somebody walks in the door. Maybe you have somebody hiding under your bed. That's really not a good thing to do. True story, it's happened. Maybe even a cat or something opens the door and the proctor doesn't know if that was a person or a cat, and then you've committed a testing violation, and that's a problem even if you really can't control your cat very well. Could be that you forgot to pee and you go walking out of the room in the middle of your exam. You can't walk out of the room without the proctor's permission. You are permitted to pee during the test, but you have to make sure you get permission first. Very easy to forget that. Any sort of talking at all can get you into trouble. Chewing gum, you're not allowed to talk during the exam. You're not allowed to curse at the proctors. So all sorts of things, very, very easy to make some of those mistakes, even if you're not doing anything that's going to give you an unfair advantage. So just keep all those things in mind. And in a few minutes, we'll talk more about what happens if you accidentally do one of those things. Okay, now let's talk about whiteboards. When you take the test in the test center, they're going to give you a certain kind of dry erase sheet. It's going to be 5 pieces of paper, yellow, laminated. That has nothing to do with what you can use for the online GMAT. Online GMAT, you can bring your own whiteboard, but there are size restrictions. So the limit is 12 inches by 20 inches. That's 30 centimeters by 50 centimeters. So if you've got something this size, this may or may not feel big to you. This is too big. This one is about 3 inches too big on each side. So just be very, very aware that you can't bring any whiteboard. It has to fit within those restrictions, 30 by 50 centimeters, 12 by 20 inches. Just make sure you've got the right size before you go in to take your online test. Okay, so let's suppose that you took your GMAT exam online, you get an email saying that your test is under review. What does that mean? How much trouble are you in? Honestly, guys, it doesn't really mean that much. It just means that maybe there was something technical they want to take another look at. Maybe there was something going in the background they were curious about. Odds are good that nothing will come of it and things are fine. It could also just be a random audit. So guys, don't panic. Test is under review just means more people are looking at it. The silver lining to it is that if they catch a mistake and they catch it early, schools will never find out about it. And I'll say more about that in just a minute. Okay, so what happens if your online GMAT exam score really is canceled? How much trouble are you in? Is it something that schools are going to find out about? So the good news, guys, is that usually nothing bad is really going to happen. Obviously, it stinks to have your test canceled and then you have to retake it. That's not fun for anybody. But schools very, very rarely find out about these score cancellations. The reason why is that as long as your score is canceled before the score is reported, schools will never see it. About 94% of the time when a score is canceled, it's canceled before the score is reported. Schools never find out about it. There's only a tiny proportion of the time, and it's usually only if something comes to light later. Your score is reported a few weeks or a month or two later. They find out that there was a problem. That's a rare occurrence. About 6% of score cancellations fit into that category. So in all likelihood, even if your score is canceled, obviously a terrible inconvenience. It's not fun. I want you to avoid that fate. But if it happens, you're going to have the chance to retest and everything's going to be okay. Okay, so what should you do if your test score was canceled and you feel like that was unfair, that you think you didn't do anything wrong? What should you do? Definitely appeal that decision. There's a whole appeals process you can go through. The test security people who read those appeals told me to tell you that. So if that happens to you, email testsecurity@gmac.com. Your appeal will be read by an actual human, not by AI, not by a computer. So if you feel like you're treated unfairly, please appeal, give them as much context as you can, and it will be read by humans and they're going to do their best to treat you fairly. Right, so let's suppose that something else goes wrong with your online GMAT exam. So nothing that was your fault, but for some reason you lost testing time, there was a technical issue or the proctor messed up, something like that. What should you do if you lose that testing time? Well, the way to think about it is now you have not had a standardized test experience. You got less testing time than the person next to you. So in that situation, you definitely want to reach out to GMAC if they don't reach out to you first. So reach out to testsecurity@gmac.com once again, or customercare@gmac.com. Tell them your story, give them as much context as you can. Once again, these things are read by actual humans. Those humans have told me to tell you to give them context. They appreciate that context, and they'll do their best to do the right thing with it. Okay, a few final thoughts here. So if you're watching this video and you've watched the whole thing and you go, crap, this is just too much stuff to deal with, fair enough. If you're worried about controlling your environment when you take the online GMAT and you prefer to just do it in the test center, fantastic. Let's say you have loud roommates, a nosy mother, a whole bunch of cats, whatever it might be. Maybe you are better off taking it in the test center. If you feel like you'd be happier doing this test online, happier at home, please don't be intimidated by all of this. Once again, there is a handbook. It lists everything you can and can't do during your exam. As long as you follow that, as long as you follow the system checks, you're probably going to be completely okay. So don't shy away from it if you feel like that's a better environment for you. Just make sure that you do your homework ahead of time so that you control all of the things that can get your test canceled. All right, thanks everybody for watching. If you enjoyed this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If there's anything else you'd like to see GMAC answer, please put it in the comments and we will get it over to them and maybe we put it into a future video. Thanks again, everybody, and have fun studying.